Hey everybody, welcome back to my Activators Guide series. This is the last episode, and today we're just going to talk a little bit about the after action report, like how did the activation go, things like that. So we've looked at radios, antennas, we've looked at how to figure out where to activate, things you need to think about before you go out and activate, the activation itself. Now we're going to look at what happens after the fact, right? So first things first, you come back from your first activation, ask yourself, how did it go? You know, did it go well? Did it not go so well? I know, like when I went out and did my first activation, it was a single sideband activation, and it went well. I had like 42 contacts. I think I was on 20 meters. In fact, my first call was Spain. So my very first contact as an activator was DX, which was kind of cool. But not all my activations have gone that smoothly. So sometimes they go completely sideways. So, you know, you kind of need to ask yourself, did the activation go the way I think it should have? And if it didn't, why? Right? I mean, did you bring the wrong gear? Did you have the wrong type of antenna? Did you forget to bring something with you? Those kinds of things. So, you know, I know some people go out with an expectation that this is going to be pretty easy and things are going to go, you know, according to plan. And sometimes they do, but I can tell you right now that they don't always. So if you went out to do your very first activation and it was frustrating, when you come back, ask yourself, okay, what went wrong? What caused it to be as frustrating as it was? You know, you may find that, well, you were only running, let's say you were running a QRP radio doing a single sideband activation. That's going to be frustrating. I've done plenty of them, but you do need to understand that the calls are going to be fewer and further between, because especially on voice, you know, that 10 watts isn't going to get you very far. Right now, if you're doing digital or CW, that's a different ball game. Like I said, antenna choice. Were you running a super compromised antenna, or were you running a no compromised, you know, full-size dipole or something? You're going to get different results with those antennas, right? You know, horizontally versus vertically polarized antennas, same kind of thing. So like yesterday, I went out and did an activation with a quarter wave vertical, and my intention was to work some DX, and it worked out that way, right? So, you know, plan on bringing the gear that you think you're going to need to be able to get the activation done the way you want to do it. But if you come back and you're like, man, that didn't work, ask yourself why. What gear didn't work the way you wanted it to, and then make adjustments from there. Did you forget anything? I've done this before. You go out in the field and you're like, oh man, I forgot a throw weight or a throw line, right? You go to put an antenna up and you're like, oops, that's a problem. I've gone out and forgotten things like connectors. So like, for instance, my vertical, there's a connector that goes from a PL259 or an SO239, whatever, to a BNC. I forgot that once and couldn't run that antenna. Fortunately, I always bring two of everything. And so I had a backup antenna to run, but that's something you got to consider as well. Did you forget something? That's why I generally run backups of everything. I bring two of everything. You know, I bring two rigs normally. I bring my main rig and then either a true SDX or an SW3B as a backup. You know, I bring at least two antennas. I bring two keys. A lot of my radios both have an external mic and an internal mic, so if I'm doing single sideband, I can go that route. I normally, if I'm doing CW, I not only do I bring two keys, I make sure I bring two cables. You know, I bring two batteries. Make sure you got two of everything. And if you're not going to be super far from your vehicle, you don't need to bring that stuff with you to the activation site, but at least you've got it if you need it. If you're going way back in the woods, you're going to need to pack small. So like when I bring my backup kit, it's usually very minimal. It's enough to get the activation done. Did you bring anything you didn't need? I've done this. I'm guilty of this. I do it all the time. I bring all sorts of stuff that I don't need. The thing is, a lot of my activations are off the beaten path, and I want to make sure I've got everything with me. So, you know, I'm bringing a table and a chair. Normally it's that fold-up Big Agnes table and the Big Agnes stool or a folding seat. You know, I'm bringing rain gear with me. I'm bringing food. I'm bringing water. I'm bringing my emergency supplies. I'm bringing first aid stuff. I'm bringing water treatment stuff with me. I'm bringing all sorts of stuff with me. A lot of it I don't ever end up having to use, but that stuff is there just as a backup in case I actually need it. That's going to kind of depend on you and where you're activating, right? If you're doing SOTA activations way on top of a mountain in the middle of nowhere, you need to have the stuff with you in case things go sideways and you got to spend the night up there. Conversely, if you're operating 100 feet from your truck, you probably don't need to haul 5 gallons of water over to the picnic table with you, right? I mean, use your brain a little bit. And like when I go out now, so like this kit right here, this little tiny kit right here, this is my not my SW3B kit. This is my Mountain Topper MTR3B kit. This thing weighs nothing. It's very, very small. You know, I throw this in my pack along with all my other gear, and this is everything I need to do in activation. The rig, the battery, the key, the cable. I've got the antennas in here, I've got coax in here, I've got a logging pad, a pencil, a throw line and weight. I've even got the manual to the radio in here. I have everything I need to do an activation just in this one little bag. So if I'm going to go out in the woods and do an activation, I can grab this little tiny pack, chuck it in my backpack with everything else, and I'm ready to roll. I don't need anything else. Okay. So don't bring a whole bunch of stuff with you that you don't need, and you'll kind of get a feel for this as you go along. You know, you'll start bringing stuff out into the field, and you'll come back, you'll be like, man, I didn't use all of this stuff. Well, if you're hiking in quite a ways, you know, every gram counts. So don't carry a whole bunch of stuff that you don't need. Conversely, don't leave yourself hanging by going, well, I probably don't need this piece of gear, when really you do. So, you know, go out and figure out exactly what things you're going to need to bring. Make sure you bring those, but you don't need to bring anything else. And you'll kind of get a feel for that. That'll come with experience. The more you do this, the more you'll know what you need to bring and what you don't need to bring. Did everything work the way you thought it was going to? This has happened to me before. You know, I go out and I think my antenna's dialed in, it's ready to go, the SWR is perfect. You got to remember that there's a lot of things that are going to affect that SWR. Height above ground, the coax you're running, ground conductivity, all sorts of things. So you might have an antenna that looks great at home, you put it up in the field, and now it's all out of whack. Now what do you do? You know, you may have a failure in the field. If you go back and watch my activation from Jenksville State Forest back in the spring, I had a big tree branch fall on my end-fed half-wave wire, broke the wire. And the radio I had didn't have a tuner in it. It was the SW3B, so I had to hike several miles back out, go to my truck, build a new antenna, and then hike back in. That was the day I decided I'm bringing two of everything. From now on, if I'm hiking in a ways, I don't have to hike back out and get something. I'm bringing two. But plan for those failures. Things are going to fail in the field. Bring connectors, bring a way to repair wire, bring, you know, extras of things, because if you're way out in the middle of nowhere in the woods or way up on a mountain and something fails, you're out of luck, right? So keep those kinds of things in mind as well. When you're all done and you've done your first activation, you know, you've logged your activation, keep in mind that there are all sorts of different awards and points, both on parks in the air and summits in the air. You know, there's all sorts of different awards on POTA.app. If you look at any activator or even hunter's profile, you're going to see all sorts of different awards. It's up to you whether the awards are important to you or not. They're not super important to me. I don't really do it for the awards. I do it because it's fun, but the awards are kind of nice. They're a little icing on the cake. With SOTA, again, you're looking at points. You know, so if you're an activator, your summits are worth points. Obviously, the more difficult or higher the summit, the higher the point value. Keep in mind that if you're doing SOTA, you only get the point value for that summit once a year. So if you do that, you can activate that summit as many times as you want, but you only get the points for that summit once a year. Chasers, remember that you unlike parks on the air where the hunters don't have to log anything. The hunters just, on parks on the air, they just hunt the parks and the logging is up to the activator. On SOTA, it's different. If you are chasing SOTA, you need to make sure that you are logging those contacts as well, because the log for the activator only counts towards the activator. If you want it to count for you as the chaser, you need to make sure you're logging those on summits in the air as well. But when you come back from an activation, try to upload your logs in a timely manner. People are looking for those confirmations and they don't want to wait, you know, 3 weeks, a month. I mean, it happens sometimes, but try to get them in pretty quickly. I try to do them the same day. If I come back really late, or something goes wrong, it might not be till the next day, but generally speaking, I like to get my logs uploaded the same day. So now that you've been out, you've done your first activation, or you've had your first successful activation, now you can start tweaking things, making adjustments. Make adjustments to your kit. You know, try different antennas, try different radios, try different modes. You know, if all you've ever done is single sideband, maybe give FT8 a shot, or go full bore and learn some CW. You're going to find that while there are more hunters and chasers on single sideband, the signals get out better on CW. So like yesterday, I worked on 5 watts while I had 2 Spanish stations, a French station, a German station, and a station from Switzerland all contact me. In fact, the Swiss one was a summit to summit, and it was the guy who created Ham Alert and SOTLess, which I thought was really cool. So you know, try other modes, you know, maybe do multiple modes in an activation. I've done that. I've done single sideband CW and FT8 all in the same activation. That gives hunters and chasers who run different modes a chance to hunt you, right? If you like, I'm primarily CW, but if I don't ever do any single sideband or any FT8, all of those hunters and chasers that do use those modes never get a chance to work me. So I kind of every once in a while like to just sort of change things up a little bit. And you're going to see that as you progress, your skills are going to get better. The time it takes for you to set antennas up is going to be a lot less. You know, you'll learn how to deal with QRM. You'll learn how to deal with things just not going according to plan. You'll learn techniques as to how to deal with things like QRM, right? You'll learn all those different things as you do more of this and your skills progress. And I apologize if I keep bending down to pick the sheet up, but there are things I don't want to forget. This video isn't going to be terribly long, but there are some things that I do want to make sure I hit. And remember, at the end of the day, this is about having fun. So if you didn't have fun the first time, figure out why. Go back out and try again. Most people, their first activation is successful generally, and they have a blast, and then they kind of get hooked, and they want to go out and do it again. But that's the key, right? Go out and do it again. Even if it didn't go according to plan the first time, go out and do it again. Do another activation, change the things that didn't work, and try it again. You'll get to the point where you get this down to a science, and you can go out, you can get set up, you can make your contacts, you can pack up, and you can get out in a reasonable amount of time. If I'm in a hurry, I can have a valid activation on POTA in less than 10 minutes. With SOTA, I can probably do it in less than 5 because you only need 4 contacts for SOTA. Now, granted, I like to spend a little more time out there and have a little more fun, make a few more contacts, enjoy myself outside. But if I'm in a hurry, I can get in and out. I can probably be set up, have a complete activation, and taken down in half an hour and be ready to hike out. So at the end of the day, just get out there and do it again. And like I said, this is all about having fun, right? If you're not having fun, then why are you doing it? And for me, this is a blast. I enjoy it. I like to be I like to be outdoors. I really enjoy working CW. That's kind of my forte. And I just find the whole aspect fun. So like I said, I really hope you enjoyed this series. I hope you found it informative. I hope it gave you some food for thought. If you haven't gone out and done an activation yet, by all means, give it a shot. And if you've been out and you've done one and it didn't go quite according to plan, take a look at some of the things that I talked about, make some adjustments, make some tweaks, figure out what worked, figure out what didn't, go out, change the way you did things and see what happens. Because at the end of the day, we want you to be successful. And like I said, both Parks in the Air and Summits in the Air are a blast. So go out and give it a shot. And with that being said, I really appreciate everybody watching. And until the next one, 7-3.